Welcome to Stories Untold, the home of good news. I am Pule Molebati. Thank you for choosing us as your source of information. Today, as we observe 16 days of activism against violence on women and children, we are changing the tide and engaging perpetrators of gender-based violence. And through that conversation, we are hoping to empower victims of gender-based violence. Today, we are traveling with Gugu Khumalo, who is a survivor and activist of gender-based violence.
Ngicabanga ukuthi into yokuqala umuntu okumele ayenze is just to accept ukuthi kwenzakalile and bekungaphezulu kwamandla ami, there was nothing that bengizoyenza, and then I understand ukuthi iphutha belingekho kuye. Yabona, once wakufaka lokho ekhanda lakho ukuthi yazini i-rape yenzakele and mina bengingekho wrong, then uzoqala ke ukwazi ukuthi uzothatha mapha ama steps going forward, because akusizi ukuthi uvalele ngaphakathi ungakhulumi because uzoba depressed. Mawuloku ukhuluma ngoba uzokhuluma uyi-one uziphendule, but ukukhuluma nomuntu even if it's not a social worker or just a friend nje ushare nje ukuthi ufila kanjani.
This radio personality has suffered gender-based violence in the hands of more than 4 men. We caught up with her during an interview at the radio station she works for.
Immediately after rape, mina, I was just numb. I did not want to talk about rape. Bengi actor ngazathi ayenzakalang. Angivulanga icase, angenzanga next, angikhulumanga nganext efaka rape or efaka nje anything ezohlanganisa naleyo nto. Mina bangidlwengule kawu-2. So the first one being 2005. The second one, which was a gang rape, being 2010. I only started talking about it in 2017. And the reason why beseng funa ukukhuluma because beseng ivalele ngaphakathi isikhathi eside and beseng fila ukuthi ngidepressed, bengifila ukuthi nje izinto zami azihlangani. I would have ama visions ukuthi umntana naye uzondlula ku the same things engidlule kuzo, so bengdepressed kakhulu. So I just ngavele ngadecide ukuthi azini, let me just face my fears, ngikhulume ngayo lento, ngazi ukuthi noma ingandluli, but at least manje mase ngikhuluma ngayo it doesn't have the same effect as beyenza ekuqaleni.
Moved by Gugu's story, Stories Untold visited her home to hear how she has managed to heal.
When I was about 15 years, ngihlale ekhaya no mama, it happened ukuthi I was raped and then I fell pregnant. And kuukuthi nasekhaya environment bengikhula kuyo, umama no baba naye umama was experiencing abuse, but ngaleso sikhathi bengisasemncane to understand everything that was happening. I was bengimncane, so I think benga understand ukuthi kwenzakalani with pregnancy. So ngaba nasisisu and angikhulumanga ekhaya ukuthi kwenzakaleni because leyo muntu loyo bekumuntu okade aziwa and bekumuntu oyewangisabisa, so angizange ngize ngikhulume ukuthi kwenzakaleni. And then kwahamba isikhathi ngaba pregnant and then I gave birth. Umama naye bekumuntu ngaleso sikhathi ngoba bengishilo ukuthi naye she was dealing with issues of her own, so ngicabanga ukuthi naye she was not paying much attention kimi. So whatever that I told her ngendaba ye pregnancy wavele wayibeliever and saqhubekela phambili njengempilo. Everything was fine because ngaleso sikhathi nje I just thought yabona, I mean kwenzakalile. So nakhona futhi in most of the time ukuthi bengiziblame mina ukuthi mhlambe because umuntu engimaziyo maybe I did something to lead them on, or mangabe ngikhuluma ekhaya ukuthi kwenzakaleni bazongishaya ukuthi why, yabona wena wayibongasho wena umenzeni lo muntu. So ngathula for isikhathi eside. Kwaphinda futhi ngo-2010 kwaba nenye incident ye-rape. This time it was not umuntu oyi-1, bekwabantu abawu-3 and it was violent because ngaleso sikhathi leso mabaqeda ukungirape abaye bangigwaza. so bangishiya khona lapho. Angazi ngicabanga ukuthi mhlambe babacabanga ukuthi ngifile kanti ngenhlanhla bengingafanga. I was able ukuthi ngivuke and ngikhona ukuthi ngithole usizo.
Gugu gave us consent to speak to her daughter, and this is her view on what her mom went through.
Umama wami like ngamtshela ukuthi asikizi for zonke lezi zinto lezi ezenzakala kuye ne. Obviously akusi fault yakhe nani yabo. So yeah, abe strong, aqhubeke alwele ama rights wabanye abantu besifazane who also went through the same thing ifana naye.
This is how the daughter found out about how she was conceived.
So one day bekangiboleka ifoni yakhe kanti ubhalile kuma notes efonini yakhe. Ama notes it's like i-diary, ubhala yonke into yakhe lapha ya. So mina ngayifunda leyo nto leyo and then I found out ukuthi kwenzakalani ngaye. And then bekanokuthi ayenza ama interviews ku GBV eradweni. So bengimamela ugogo wami ngitshela ukuthi vele simamele ngayimamela. So bekathi mase kangitshela ngayo le ndaba le bengekho that surprised because already bengiyazi. Even though bengazi the whole story, but le part le ebhlungu bese ngiyazi.
My relationship nomntanami bekuyi relationship nje ukuthi okay owami it's fine yabona, but after sengi wamkelile ukuthi kwenzakalani nokuthi umntwana azozafike wafika ngendlela enjani, then nami ngaqala ngaba na that relationship naye, ngafuna ukuthi ngibe close naye because bengingahlali naye.
In her journey to healing, Gugu took a brave step in dealing with her fears.
Of all the stories that we have covered, particularly on the subject of gender-based violence, and we have done quite a few over the past 5 years, Stories Untold is approaching this particular discussion with an open mind and inviting you to engage. This is us seeking and introducing an alternative way to engage with victims and perpetrators of gender-based violence.
One of the things that I felt ukuthi I needed to do in order to ukuthi ngindlule kule simo was to overcome my fears. So because bengifuna ukuba confront and I couldn't, so ngazitshela ukuthi ngizoya ejele and ngikhulume nama offenders aboshelwe specifically indaba ze GBV but kakhulukhulu i-rape. So there is why I feel it's more than in the not that like I'm a victim that was ready, but when you look guys, I did this.
Already that means there's a stepping stone, there's a start of where we've started. So it will be much easier when you do that, maybe try and engage with us.
Madume Dikale's face is not new to our screens. He was found guilty and prosecuted during a much publicized court hearing.
The bail hearing before the presiding officer will be hearing the matter, he'll still be in custody in the process.
We were fortunate enough to be allowed a brief conversation with some of the GBV offenders at Boksburg prison, including Madume Dikale.
It's a very sad situation, and especially the way we put our victims into. I mean, I wouldn't condone what I did, and I wouldn't condone it to other men that are there. You know, it's quite an ordeal.
Now incarcerated, Madume is part of the rehabilitation programs here at Boksburg prison.
I'm here for an attempted murder case. I was served with 9 years. I'm 1 year in my sentence now. I attempted to kill my wife, hence I was charged with attempted murder, and it happened in 2019. We were both staying together, and yeah, then we were in the process of a divorce. Then while we were in the process of a divorce, she moved out of the house. Then when she moved out of the house, I found out that she had an affair with somebody else. Then I couldn't control everything, and that's what led to the whole ordeal. When I came here, I was a boy and not a man, but I can proudly say that I've realized my mistakes and I'm becoming a man. I am currently attending programs with the center, and I am in the healing process.
Veli Masondo was once a prison warder. Today, he finds himself behind bars.
I'm here from a assault case of my wife. I was assaulted my wife in 2019. So I was sentencing 8 years in prison. I lost everything, ma'am. I lost my wife, I lost my career, I lost to parenting my children.
Veli is also undergoing rehabilitation through the prison's programs and Gugu's initiatives.
The program that I go through in the Department of Correctional Service, the anger, the thing into ngibona ukuthi mina benginayo it's anger nokufila insecure for unkosikazi wami. So izinto ezangilidela ukuthi ngize khona ukuphakamisela isandla. But I couldn't the program engidlule kuwe ma'am angincede kakhulu.
This journey serves Gugu and the offenders themselves, and it is during these sessions that both the offender and the victim face their demons.
Okwamanje ngisebenzisa this initiative yami yase prison ukuthi ingisize with my journey yokuhila. Bengifeel ukuthi if ngiyakhona ukuhlala nomunye umuntu owenze or rapeile, then ngizokhona ukuthi ngibe ne conversation naye, then ngizokhona ukuthi ngixole.
With almost 3,000 inmates in this facility, this clinical psychologist sees more than 10 inmates daily.
As we observe 16 days of activism against violence on women and children, as Stories Untold, we are spending some time here at the Boksburg Correctional Service just to open up the dialogue between victims and perpetrators of gender-based violence and teaching each other about way forward.
So thank you very much for welcoming us into your office. I'd like for you to kindly please introduce yourself and let us in on what your role is here.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nonhlanhla, for having me on your show. You are very much welcome into our center. My name is Gugu and I am a clinical psychologist. I am currently employed for the Department of Correctional Services, and I work as a clinical psychologist in the department in Boksburg, Medium A.
Help us understand the mindset of offenders. Are there any traits that in your experience with them, you've been able to pick up to say, these are the red flags?
So in keeping with the theme of the 16 days, I will obviously focus on offenders who have committed those kinds of crimes, gender-based violence. When we speak about gender-based violence, we have to first start by speaking about violence. And for an adult man to perpetuate violence, it is very common that at an early age they are exposed to violence, and violence is normalized. When they are being shaped in those early developmental stages, that is when they're absorbing and they're learning. And when there are things, for example, a violent parent, violence in the communities, there has usually been some sort of exposure to violence. If not, then there is some sort of substance abuse in the home that they've been exposed to, and that watching those things, watching this behavior happen in the household, growing up around it, they internalize a lot of these experiences. And it unfortunately shapes men who are harboring a lot of anger and aggression and become violent individuals. Another thing is, in society, yes, parents and immediate caregivers are very important in raising boys who understand that violence is not normal. But societally as well, there are things that perpetuate violence. When a boy child goes to school and is in a fight and he comes home, they'll ask, why didn't you fight back? Wow, Whereas if a girl child comes back and tells the same story, they'll be like, no, report it to the teacher, So these kinds of things are perpetuating that violence is normal as a man. It's part of my masculinity. It's part of my identity. It gets internalized, and later on we see it with people who become GBV perpetrators. So I think environmentally, there are a lot of things that we can change in society, in the immediate home, at school, caregivers of children who are raising boys. We can definitely shift the perception and what they internalize so that when they become adults, they're not harboring anger and aggression and violence towards women or even each other.
If you can please paint a picture for us in terms of reoffenders. What are we looking at currently?
The reoffending rate in the general prison population is quite high. But we see a lot of reoffending in economic crimes. Those are the ones that they become what we call habitual criminals. They're in and out of the system. Economic crimes are, your theft, your robberies, things that they're trying to gain economic things. When it comes to GBV, the stats aren't clear on the reoffending rates, but they are much lower than those of the economic crimes. It happens that there are people who go out who we thought were rehabilitated and they end up reoffending. A lot of the time it has to do with substances. They will go out, they'll be clean whilst they're in here, and we get them clean and they understand their path that they need to take to go forward in order to stay out of prison. But then they relapse when they get out, and then they end up reoffending. It's difficult for those who don't have family support. It's difficult for those who are going back to the same communities that got them into those behaviors in the first place. So they're exposed to a lot of the same things. And unfortunately, this is where the community has to come in to assist us, because we can rehabilitate the offender up to so far. Then beyond that, it's out of our control. We send them into the community and we hope that they have the support, they have the acceptance, they have the guidance that they need to stay on the right path in order for them not to reoffend.
Another expert who gave us insight in this fight was Gugu's social worker.
Gender-based violence pandemic is ours. The perpetrators of GBV are amongst us. They are not aliens. So if you know or if you see something, let's support the victim. Let's rally behind the victim. Let us stop the battle of the sexes, because I think we are too focused on that. When we have to talk about women, there's a man that would come up and say, even men too. When a woman is speaking up, then men come and say men too. When a man is speaking up, women come and say, let's stop the battle of the sexes and fight gender-based violence together. The G does not only represent women. Yes, we acknowledge that the majority of gender-based victims are women and children. But let's fight it together. Be it a man, be it a woman, let's give it the same attention. Let's fight it. We want it to end. We don't want it to swap. But we want to get to a point where we are a no gender-based violence country.
Ntabiseng shared with us how she first heard Gugu's story on radio, and today she is very proud of her.
I'm so proud of her. I must say, at that point, as like I'm saying, I could hear the victory and the pain in her voice. I sensed a woman that wanted to fight but was still bleeding. And I must say, the Gugu that we are with today, she's got scars, she's healed. And we know that scars don't bleed. She'll always remember what happened to her. But I can assure you the emotions that she had then are no longer as intense when she talks about her story today. She can talk about it without crying. We can talk about it without her wanting to fight, but rather she has taken control. She's no longer having that victim mentality of saying, I'm a victim, but she's like, I'm fighting. I am going to decide how this story ends.
As KCFM, the good thing about us is that we're a community radio station. So a lot is happening in the community. Could you like to well Google almost every day about this? So not to her, I could say, who's a homicide, who a homicide woman, who's a home me, who a home me moon. So la pele ngwaneso. Bua. Emma, o tsebe hore bophelo ba o botlo fetoga. How we are on national TV like this? O share story se tshwanang le se. Jalo ka ke tsholo re ho tlo ba le batho ba favor, ho tlo ba le batho ba sa favor. Empa wena Emma, hobane ke wena o tsebang ntho fitileng ho yona. And how o etsetse wena fela. O etsetsa le ba bang ba fitileng ho yona empa ba tshabang ho bua.
With all the shocking statistics of this GBV pandemic, Gugu's story is not unique. However, her unique healing journey truly sets her apart, and those close to her are proud and wish her well.
I wish her emotional strength. I wish her support in everything that she does. I wish that she grows in what she's doing and she learns from her past mistakes, from the life that she's living now, from everything that has happened to her. May it shine a light and also uplift someone else. You know, I believe with what she's doing, it only takes her to tell her story, changing one life at a time. That's changing the world.
Umama ngiyamthanda kakhulu and ngithanda the way a patient ngakhona yakwazi ukubekezela umuntu yakwazi ukulalela akusize. It's fine yena akakwazanga ukuyisiza that time, but ngiyajabula ukuthi uyakwazi ukusiza abanye abantu manje and futhi aphinda aqhubeka asiza abantu because lento la yenzayo iyabanceda kakhulu abantu.
Most victims search for closure, and that's what I told her. Closure comes from you. Your perpetrator is not going to give you closure. You are going to decide for yourself what closure is, and she has done that.
So Gugu, how do you feel now that you've shared your story with the world?
I think I have mixed emotions. Looking ukuthi ngibuya kuphi, when I first came here 2018, 2019, it was not like this. Bengithukile, bengisaba, but now ukubheka nje talking to the offenders laba engiloko ngisebenza nabo through the programs kungenza ukuthi ngijabule kakhulu, also ngibe overwhelmed ukuthi kukhona into engikhona ukuthi ngibenzele yona, because they've also started a support group lana ngaphakathi yamanye ama-offenders aba-serving time for gender-based violence amaqala wakhona. So nje I've got mixed emotions. I always look forward to coming la Boksburg.
All right, thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Oh.